Well, welcome to the OpenMined Privacy Conference session on privacy, AI, and startups. Today, we're very fortunate to have Michael Geer, co-founder of Humanity and also member of OpenMined, Théo Ryffel, who's actually the OpenMined team lead on cryptography at OpenMined, as well as a co-founder of Arkin. My name is Sachin Deshpande. I lead technology marketing, and I'm working with big tech partnerships at OpenMined. And I just thought we would start off, before we get into any of the topics, just with some quick around the horn introductions. You know, Théo, who's basking in the Parisian sun there in that beautiful sunlight. Do you mind giving a little bit of background on yourself, your company, and your role at OpenMined?
Yeah, sure. So hi everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here. As you said, I'm a cryptography team lead. So we're trying within OpenMined to develop, integrate, implement a new cryptography algorithm to provide new way to do fast and secure machine learning. And so I'm co-founder of Arkin. Arkin is a young company based in Paris. We help hospitals to better manage the healthcare data to improve patient care. So concretely, like in a sentence, we build a centralized and standardized data lake on-premise to help patient information retrieval for like practitioner or labs and stuff like this.
Thanks, Théo. And Michael, I'd love for you to describe your background as well as describe what you're doing with Humanity.
Sure. Yeah, and thanks for having me on here. And yeah, great to be involved with OpenMined. Yeah, my background, well, wanted to be an astronaut, but eventually created a dating site out of Moscow called Badoo that got quite large, but then moved on to get quite involved with privacy and security and protecting the internet, and ended up running the largest consumer VPN in the world. But in the course of that, got quite into preventive health and was affected by some tragic health events with people that were close to me, and really started going down the rabbit hole of figuring out what we could do to stay healthy for longer. And in the course of that, and as Théo knows well, there's a lot of data out there that can be used to actually save lives and make ourselves healthier. And so kind of came across OpenMined and a lot of different technologies that allow us to leverage that data for good, but keep the privacy of the user. So that's why I'm here talking with you guys today.
Thanks, Michael. My name is Sachin Deshpande. As I mentioned earlier, I'm focused on technology marketing and big tech partnerships at OpenMined. And I have a combination of big tech and startup work from my past with Facebook, Qualcomm, even Zoom, and as well as some startups. And really, what the reason I got or the way I got involved with OpenMined was I saw a talk that he did at MIT. I saw it on YouTube. He did for Lex Fridman, and I really thought OpenMind's vision towards both the protection of data as well as the unleashing of data, to enable data sets for better, social purposes was really mind blowing. And I just wanted to pitch in, any way I could. So it's kind of been a privilege for me to meet great people such as Théo and such as Michael through this incredible community. And really what Théo and Michael and I were talking about want to talk about today is, and I think Michael and Théo are uniquely suited to do this, is how open source communities such as OpenMined, but in particular OpenMined, and startups can coexist and frankly synergistically benefit each other. And we just thought we'd just spend the next few minutes talking about that. So the obvious question, and Théo, I'm going to start with you. You've been working with OpenMined for a while, and you've been working with Arkin for a while. What's it like doing both? What are the points of synergy where you guys work together, the value exchange, and just at a high level? We'll talk about the specific privacy technical constructs later, but I'm just kind of curious, what have been the benefits and maybe even some of the challenges?
Yeah, sure. So first, one thing about like my implication in OpenMined in Arcan is that they are both like very, it's like the two face of a coin. So on the one hand, we need to make the data available, clean, to be able to run like data analysis in an efficient way. And on the other side, we need also some cool and robust libraries to be able to just to ship some models, train them, and try to improve our knowledge in healthcare. So this works really like together. And as at Arcan, what we do is, as I said, is we build crucial infrastructure in the hospital where we care a lot about privacy, security of the data, because we put all the data at the same place. So obviously we need to be very careful. So the structure that we build, the code that we build is very sensitive. Therefore, it was natural for us to make it open source. So also we have been open source since the beginning. So open source was something which is really, really natural. So that's why like working with OpenMined is also something that we have been always keen to do. And we have like built several projects together. And now currently we are working on a project to develop the differential privacy part in OpenMined, and I think Lucille from Arcan is doing a talk at the conference on this. But between the interaction, what I say is like we take a lot of what is built in the community, and we give a lot. Like we give our use cases. We give like sometimes we have like people from the company which works on this community project to build new stuff, and it's also a way to learn about like what is going on these topics. It's a very advanced topic about privacy, cryptography. Everything is going really fast. Having access to a community of researchers helps a lot to know, okay, what are the latest advance, and the other thing is also like we have discovered great talents as part of the community that now works at Arcan. So like we are really excited about this. Maybe for the last part of your question, which is like what are the challenges? The challenges is that, of course, it requires like efforts. Like you cannot just put your code open source and say, okay, I'm going to build a community out of this. It doesn't work. You need to engage, to help contributors understand how you will help them to build something that is cool, that will be like helpful for them. And this takes a lot of time. And I'm sure Andrew can tell, like at the time he has spent at the beginning just explaining why we had to do this, why we had to engage in the community. So like that's the big challenge also.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, the time that you have to put in to get those benefits. I was just curious, just one quick follow-up question, Théo. The advantages are very, very clear that you were talking about the community, staying up on top of everything, the meeting of the great minds and potential talent. And obviously, I understand the challenge there of some of the infrastructure work. Are there any, and I have to ask this as an ex-VC, are there any competitive disadvantages by, sometimes if you put some of your advanced stuff back in open source? And I know it's a tricky thing.
So that's like was also a question I was discussing with my co-founder, which was like maybe not as experienced as I was in open source. But what I would say is when you're building complex stuff, you'd better build it together, like together with the community. Like maybe some stuff that Arcan contributed will be used by another company, which could be like a competitor. But I mean, this means that they are following us. So I mean, this means that we are leading the good direction. So that's very positive, and we have definitely a better understanding of the code base, of the roadmap, of where we want to go. So I have like my code in the community, which is being maintained, updated, upgraded, almost for free, and even maybe updated by my competitors. So, I mean, like there is a trade-off, but the trade-off is positive for me.
I think that's very, very clear. Thanks, Théo. Michael, why don't you explain to everyone what a little bit about your background, and in particular, you and I have spoken about humanity, which I find totally fascinating as well. Would just love to hear about it, both things.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, we both kind of, me and Pete Ward, my co-founder, we both came to it, as I said, kind of, through experiences that we had with, tragic kind of health events that drove us in that direction. I think the kind of aha moments where we were like, oh, there's something actually that isn't getting out to people now that needs to. And when we started going around and talking to a bunch of scientists, and there are disparate fields, geneticists who actually have some experience with kind of bigger data sets, and immunologists and stem cell researchers, the aha moment was that you could actually monitor. So we were thinking like early detection of disease. So like early detection of cancer was the one that I was really interested in. But when we were talking to all these people, actually what there was this idea that you're actually always progressing towards disease. And so on the spectrum, and you could actually get people much, it's basically what preventive health is all about. You can get people way before they get to the, quote unquote disease state. And when we started looking at that, that was the first aha moment. But the second one that finally said, oh, there's something we can do and we can bring to people, is the idea that you have these longitudinal data sets, these big data sets, and within those data sets, you actually see the health events that happen to a large group of people. So this person had a heart attack, this person had, got, cancer diagnosis, and you can see all their biomarkers. So these amazing data sets where then you can get predictive algorithms to actually predict how far away people are from disease. And so those are the two aha moments. Then the third one was, okay, but we really need to somehow then unleash this data in a way that this is very, very private data, and it needs to stay that way. How can we actually unleash it and leverage it? Because there's millions of lives to be saved if we do this correctly. Not just us, but everybody, right? And so that's when I was talking with one of our investors who did a big AI company that Facebook bought, and he sent me a video of Andrew. And I think I told you this, Sachin. It's like one of those things.
You did.
And I didn't watch it for like 3 weeks. It was just like, yeah, thanks for the video. On the list of the other 20. And then I watched it and I was like, oh, that's exactly what we were like thinking, right? Like I think Andrew gave an example of, raise your hand. He was in a group of, ML and Python developers and PySift. And, it's like, raise your hand if you've worked on kind of like a predictive text, data set, right? Raise your hand if you've worked on a diabetes data set, and everybody's
no.
And it was like, well, okay, well, which is more important, do you think? And everybody's like, oh, well, the health ones are more important. And he's like, okay, well, we should do something about that, right? I think it was just a great way to frame it. And so in that idea that everybody in that audience, they're not special, they're not, Stanford professor or something like that. Those are people that learned how to code and that they know how to do ML. And if we could unleash those millions of people around the world that are learning these skills, the impact is way more than any one of us in any company. But so that was the aha of the whole thing. But with humanity, what we want to do is harness that and actually bring it, because we've made apps that got to 1 billion people, me and Pete, and we want to bring that directly to the consumer, where they can and then we have some test users already in the UK using the alpha, where you can you get all your data, you pull it in, we run it through the algorithms, and you actually can see your probability of disease. We put it as a rate of aging, and that's your feedback loop. Now you can base everything you do, anything you're trying to be healthy, you can now see, is it working or not against that predictive algorithm. And then obviously, as you kind of expand that and we partner and we open up our data set, as in allowing people to train on it, but not getting access to the data, I think there's just a ton of good that can come from that. And so that's why we're, although as a startup, we have so many other, we have so many priorities, and we need to, make it to the next VC round and all that kind of stuff.
No question.
Pete and I have built and sold a couple companies now, and what else is there other than impact? And so even in this early stage, what we're thinking early is like, how do we actually get to that massive impact point, which is the app, humanity getting to 100 million people and more. But more importantly, how do we raise all ships that we all kind of move forward and get to this point of impact? So.
No, that's an incredible vision for humanity. I'm excited about it, and for all the betas that are coming up. And one question I have for you is, given your depth of experience and putting consumer apps into the billions, when you saw Andrew's talk and when you thought about open source, what are your views? I mean, the same thing I kind of asked Théo. The pros and cons of really working with open source communities. Just any thoughts that you had, maybe before you started working with OpenMined and after. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, and we've explored this, and we've done open source at my past companies, like with the consumer VPN. We were doing a ton of stuff on just like improving network communication, and we were open sourcing that. I think, any student of the internet's in kind of computer software knows that it's built on the backs of a lot of open source, right? And so if people weren't able to leverage open source, then we wouldn't be half as far as we are right now. I think I don't have enough experience so like if we were to then say with humanity, we're going to start open sourcing some of our code, I don't have as much experience to kind of give great advice on that. What I would say is that as humanity, we're very happy to be able to kind of interact with an open source community, and kind of anything that we're doing together gets published into the open source. And so us trying to bring everybody to a specific project that humanity is doing, it's not in our near roadmap, but us interacting with OpenMined and then in that interaction actually improving. And when you have these things, as you know, with OpenMined, you need real world use cases, like with any development, not even open source or not open source. You need real use case, or you can end up kind of going in a certain direction that might not be as usable. So that's what we hope to do with humanity, is actually be quite useful in being one of the use cases and kind of using the stuff that OpenMined is doing, and then in the course of that enriching the open source by anything that's developed in unison. So.
Oh, that makes sense. I think just before we started this conversation here, when the three of us got on the call, we were talking about how certain technologies might be even more applicable in the near term. Some of the constructs, maybe differential privacy, maybe some other constructs. I was curious if either of you had any thoughts on that, or wanted to share kind of your vision in terms of privacy constructs that might roll out in the future as it relates to your own startups.
Yeah, sure. Maybe I can speak for hospitals at least. Many hospitals want to collaborate together. That's a big thing. Like if you're working on rare diseases, on any project, you just need tons of data, and some hospitals know each other. It's just complicated to find a good way to collaborate together, and that's where further learning helps a lot, because what you say is like you define like a model, and you ship it on all the hospitals to be trained and engaged and retrained and so on. And that's a perfect use case. So of course you need the data to be standard across all of the hospitals, but that's our job. So that's okay. But then it makes it very convenient for the hospital. And that's, I would say it's the most mature technology so far amongst all the privacy preserving technologies, and maybe the one that I would combine with is differential privacy. There is like a huge breakthroughs in differential privacy to try to make models that are trained non-sensitive with respect to the patient that they were trained on. So that is a good combination with further learning to be able to, the data stays local in the centers, and the model is not sensitive thanks to the protection of differential privacy.
Michael, I really enjoyed this conversation, and just look forward to staying in touch and working, and hope others get benefit from this talk.
Cool. Yeah, well, thanks, Sachin. Thanks, Théo.
Talking to you. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Have a great day.